Hello, welcome back to ESI Focus. I'm your host Adam Fitch, and on today's episode I am joined by Dustin Sweeney of HKS. Now, I don't want to ruin much of what is discussed, but again, we are looking at a different angle of the whole facility venue topic. So, yeah, he comes from an architectural design background, and that's the focus and really the lens we look through in this episode, especially with the Team Vitality project that HKS delivered, the V.Hive in France. There's plenty of really interesting things here that I don't think are discussed much in esports, so I hope you take a lot from it. I hope you enjoy it, and hopefully we'll see you next week for another episode, the final in the venue and facility focus. Cheers. Hello everyone, welcome back to ESI Focus. Dustin, I just want to say straight up, thank you very much for taking the time to speak to me. I still don't understand why people do it because I'm not that interested of a guy, but hopefully the topics that we touch on today will provide a different kind of perspective on like venues and facilities in esports.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It's good to be here and good to chat about this. It's something I'm excited about, so I think this should be a good chat today.
I think the most sensible thing to do is to kind of break down exactly what your company does, and then from there we can touch on what you do in esports and the things you have done and what you may be looking to do in future. So if you could just kind of give us a basic rundown on that, please.
Yeah, I'll try to do the 10-second elevator, but it's a little longer. HKS is an international architecture firm, and we hit every sector from healthcare to hospitality to sports entertainment. And I sit in the sports entertainment group, and we focus on really the fan experience and how to develop and build the most amazing fan experience, no matter what kind of, whether it's football, soccer, baseball, esports, anything that we can kind of get our heads and minds around, we're ready and willing to tackle. And a lot of it is geared around architecture and interiors, but we have a lot of specialty groups in there that help focus on user experience design, food and beverage design, interior hospitality design, and things like that.
Okay, well, all things I know nothing about, so it's good we've got you here for that.
Yeah.
So you say you work in sports. Have you got any kind of clients you could just give us a little
Right. So if all goes to plan, one more month from now, SoFi Stadium opens in LA. So
okay.
The big LA project there, where it has 72,000 or more for the NFL Bowl, and then there's a 6,000 seat performance arena, all under the same roof. And that performance arena is actually designed partially with a focus on esports as well. So through its development, we were working with ownership and the teams that would perform in there to develop that space to play host to kind of typical Overwatch and Call of Duty League, like weekly matches, as well as kind of the large Grandmaster matches as well.
Okay, and when did you get involved in all this stuff, and kind of what led you down this path? Because to me, like architecture and design and stuff, it's
right.
Never been something I'd think of. But I mean, you clearly really.
HKS as a firm has definitely been tracking esports for well over 6 or 7 years at this point. My time with the company has been working close to 5 years now. So almost when I walked in the door, kind of started hit the ground running with what they were focusing on. And, we were seeing all the huge crowds, mostly in Korea and Asia and stuff like that. You'd see 70,000 people for an esports match. And you're like, okay, this is something we got to look at. We got to make sure that we're at least understanding the environment so that we can, when it hits the floor, hits the deck for us, we're ready for it. So we've been keeping our ear to the ground and being a part of projects and always consulting about how do we prepare for esports events in these larger arenas. And now we're to the point where we're designing specific venues for esports.
And then that's pretty wild considering like the online nature of esports and like just 15, 20 years ago, like LANs were nowhere near as popular and kind of commonplace as they are now, So the
right.
fact that there can be almost a division like focusing on that stuff is insane, not only from like a tournament perspective, but having dedicated headquarters, because Jason Lake calls it esports 2.0, but like we got to the point where there were like team houses and they almost kind of became like the headquarters for organizations. Obviously not the best environment, like living with your teammates, practicing with them, and like if you want some alone, like some downtime or something,
right.
Your teammates are always there as well. Whereas now, so we had, as I say, we had Jason Lake on earlier in the series, and he just discussed how They've got their own like luxury apartments, and then when they're ready to go practice, they'll head down to the Star in Frisco, Texas, and they have access to all of Dallas Cowboys' facilities and stuff. But they've also got their own state-of-the-art headquarters there. And then when they're ready to leave, they can just step out the door, and as all these hospitality things around them, they can go to a pub. Maybe they're definitely not going to call it a pub there, but go get a drink if they want. Go get some food and stuff. So like it's come a long way, even in the space of say like five to 10 years. Realistically, I'm thinking about Optic Gaming and stuff. But then they tried to grow too quick. They had their own facility and it wasn't big enough. It's been a really interesting time, and actually trying to get that right. Like that between we need like a dedicated area right now where we can have our whole operations, not only the teams that compete, but all of our staff as well. Like Evil Geniuses, they say they've got like 80 employees now. And they probably had 10 last year. It's like, but like also, how far do you go designing like a headquarters that can hold 150 people if you're never going to get to that point, and it's so costly? Like it seems like a really kind of difficult consideration for me.
It's definitely something. Yeah, I mean, you kind of put it all in a great nutshell there. You know because every time we talk with a team that kind of wants to go down that path of designing a headquarters or a specific space for them, that's always our first conversation with them. What are your growth plans? How do you plan? What's coming? And they're like, they always say, like, well, I don't know, because it's the market itself has been such a roller coaster in the past 5 years, as far as up and down, and a lot of up. But how far can we plan ahead to make sure that what facilities we put on the table for them is actually going to perform and not really become a burden for them in the long run? Which kind of fed into a lot of the Vitality project there in Paris for us, right? We realized that they wanted to focus on their brand and what they wanted to do, and we really tried to create a multi-use space that they could use in many different ways, but is potentially expandable and growable for them.
Mm-hmm. And one thing I find interesting is, so I'll bring up Lake, but I will stop soon. I asked him, will his facility ever be profitable? I mean, he's got all these sponsors involved and such, but like it's a massive investment, and obviously it's good to have a place where you're all centralized and you've got all the technology and facilities you need, but like also, is it actually important for a facility to be profitable in any way, or is it just one of those kind of like it's an asset that you've got, which obviously you could do what you want with it down the line and sell it and such if you wish, but it's just like TSM quoted that they've spent $50 million on their facility. I call bullshit on that. I don't believe that whatsoever. It's just it's a nice YouTube title and thumbnail, right. But significant investment. Like, do you personally, obviously you're on the other side of this, but you obviously do believe they're like a worthwhile investment, but like, do you think it's even necessary for them to be profitable in a sense, or it's just like this?
Yeah, I mean, you got to measure that profit in like, I think, a different kind of parameter, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, it's not so much trying to make an ROI on what you're dropping there. It's really about how useful can that tool, being the facility, be for you to as a recruitment tool to get more players or better players into your team and organization, and how does it support the overall goal of what you're doing as a brand and a whole overall organization. So what sort of things can that space help you accomplish that, say, a regular kind of tenant fit out type situation would not accomplish for you? And for many of these, as we're all seeing, right, for these esports brands and teams, they are very much a media company in some regards, right? They're putting out content, they're putting out, partnerships, and whether it be with their brand partners or just for them and themselves, but in that facility needs to be able to perform for them in that right. Meaning, how can that facility support them and actually make other things that do return profit? And then, that's how you start to balance out what is the return and what is worth building or not building.
Yeah, and interesting that you say that. So this is basically like a tech sector, right? Realistically, entertainment sector. So you do have your teams and you want your facilities, whether you're like emulating a stage setup, so they can, like I think G2 have and 100 Thieves have, or just something entirely different. I don't know. I think there's a lot of room to kind of experiment at the moment, but. Not only is there the competition side, but there's also the content creation side, as you say, and it has to house a lot of the times at least like staff and stuff as well. Mm-hmm. So how the hell do you I don't understand how you, or I couldn't do it anyway at least, how you balance all of that and decide, no, like this is the right thing that you need? Like, is it, so as you say, with the Vitality project, which I do want to go into, is it just a case of allowing it to be robust as possible? Which I don't know how hard that is with it being a physical space as well.
Definitely right now the name of the game is flexibility. I mean, designing spaces that will have many uses in the long run. And the reality there is that you want to see that in the beginning. I think a lot of the larger market wants to see that just because not everybody fully understands how these spaces are going to be used over the next 10 years, because we just don't know how the brands are going to unfold and how they're going to grow. And we have some assumptions. We've seen how sports teams represent themselves with their fan base and their communities. But as far as how esports will kind of take hold of these kind of physical spaces, because for so long it's been in the virtual, right? And now we have this whole flip reverse role with COVID now, now we're back in the virtual. So like, it's really cool to see esports kind of take that lead as far as they've been there, they know what they're comfortable and they're already playing in it. But now it's like, how do we bring back that physical again? Because now we've lost it. So it's really interesting, and we hold on to flexibility for right now, just because there's going to be so many uses that we can't even think of at this point. We can only plan for.
Yeah, for sure. And I personally think that esports is more media than sports. I don't know your take on that, but how much of a lead should esports take from traditional sports when it comes to building these facilities and such?
Yeah, I would definitely argue. I mean, it's a very good point, and I would also argue that traditional sports are starting to move that way as well, because they're realizing the value of what that media is, right? And the many verticals and different things that they can include in their umbrella of ownership. And it's not, yes, the main focus is the physical sports, but really, it's about the brand and what it means to be a part of that team and that organization. And that has so many different kind of avenues, and a lot of that is responded with, different kind of media outlets, whether it be behind the scene videos or, work with the team, or hints at, tips and tricks, or, there's so many different ways to go about it.
Mm-hmm. And have you seen any major advancements in terms of like the facilities of esports organizations and such in like the past 5 years? Because we do say how esports is moving at a mad pace. Like 1 year in esports is literally like actually 5 years or something in some cases. Yeah. So has there been a huge development on that front, or as we kind of said, like there's stuff to be figured out yet? So
yeah, I mean, like we started out here, I'm definitely more focused on the kind of fan experience side. Right. So watching the development from how teams and organizations, but more specifically with the Overwatch homestand weekends. Yeah. Watching how they use their different venues and how they sold tickets and experiences and seats and group seats and or VIP seats to I thought that was very interesting to watch how that flexed per venue and per city. Mm-hmm. As far as the back of house, I mean, has become almost standardized. It's like another event for these venues. But the kind of technical aspect is that when you have a homestand weekend, you got 8 teams in house. Each of those teams need a green room, and each of those teams need a practice space. So like you're up to 16 individual rooms that you need for these teams, and not many traditional spaces host that. Some do, because they're prepared for that sort of flexibility. But so it's very interesting, looking forward, how is it always going to be an 8-team weekend, or will it move down to 4, or will it just focus on 2? And really take hold of the whole geolocation thing, like Overwatch and Call of Duty have kind of grabbed onto.
Yeah, it's been a very interesting time. Obviously, like the kind of blueprint for the Overwatch League wasn't actually executed until this year, and then obviously shit goes down the pan there. We probably get halfway through the COD season, maybe the inaugural COD season, until things went up the Swanee there, and it looked like while the numbers have never been like transparent publicly on those things, it looked like the package of the event, like it looked like it was designed pretty well. Like if you look at even like the launch weekend in Minnesota for the Call of Duty League, like that looked pretty bloody solid, to be honest with you, and that couldn't always be the case for Call of Duty, for like the Call of Duty World League. So I actually think having like the teams, I think, are somewhat responsible for their own events, right? So like they can concentrate on their own thing way ahead of time, because the calendars are already sorted, whereas before. Like the COD League would be traveling from Seattle to London to wherever else, whereas now these franchises and stuff are somewhat in charge of what they're doing, and it was way too soon for them to even consider having facilities of their own. I know that, so yeah, like trying to find a suitable venue can't be easy at all. And I've never really thought about the fact that there's so many teams and you need all the practice areas and such for them, and I guess areas for media and stuff as well, all the broadcast and production functionality. It seems we should just move to online full time, because that seems a lot easier.
Forget the physical, we'll just go all virtual.
And yeah, it's obviously unfortunate for the leagues at this point, but it's also shown how robust esports is, though that there are like competitive integrity kind of concerns and stuff with online play. So like LANs are better than just getting fans in. There's more reasons to do it. But it's interesting because like with like Katowice, obviously IAM Katowice, like one of the biggest tournaments across esports. Nearly always packs out the arena, but it actually gives away free tickets to like local fans and stuff, and I think that's an interesting way of approaching things, and it makes it look good in the photos and the videos, right? And and the atmosphere is probably really good, and I think that's partly why they do it, but ESL did partner with, I'm not going to say the company's name, but a company to offer like hospitality packages, more VIP experiences and stuff, but that's still not commonplace across esports at all from my knowledge, and I wonder how long that
not yet. Yeah, definitely something we're tracking too, right? What is, and it comes down to the market research. What is the typical esports fan willing to spend per venue or per event, right? And typically nothing is the kind of the issue right now. So thinking about ways, how do we design the event to be more attractive to people who maybe technically aren't hardcore esports fans, much like people who are hardcore NBA fans bring either their friends or their girlfriends and really they may not be interested in the game at all, but there's enough event, there's enough action, there's enough things happening there in the building that make it more attractive to go. So thinking in that realms of how do we make this as a larger spectacle or a larger kind of interesting event other than maybe just the gaming that's happening on stage.
As long as we avoid like DJ Khaled performances and stuff, which we've seen before, that's one thing that will stop me going to an event. Never mind get me to go to one if DJ Khaled's on the bill after seeing the Overwatch League stuff, because we definitely have like a music problem in esports. We like there's some good overlaps there, but in terms of how things are executed at an event basis, it's not always great, and maybe part of that is if you've got 5,000 people in one area, it's going to be hard to find music that all of them like, So it is that's an interesting part. So
I would also say like the gaming audience itself is also pretty diverse. Just as, everybody loves gaming or loves that game, but even within that sector, there is such diversity as far as outside interests outside of just gaming, and it's that I think adds just another kind of thing on top of all this. How do you attract everybody? And you can't. So what areas do you focus on and try to make sure you're doing it the best?
And one thing I found interesting in the recent, I think past couple of years, maybe last year and a half, is like 100 Thieves with its Cash App. It's because we're not sponsored by them, isn't it?
Yeah, right.
Cash App compound. It has like a storefront, which adds another layer to the facility. So while like Complexity's facility is open to the public, like they don't charge you to go in, like 100 Thieves obviously successful with its merchandise drops anyway, but adds another layer to it where it's like, okay, you can actually come to the compound at this point and spend $5,000 on a t-shirt that has our our name across it, and that's it. And that adds another level of like interaction, and like you actually get to see the venue that they're all based, and you see so much in all the videos and photos and stuff. You actually get to be part of it, and I guess that deepens like the fan engagement and interaction, and maybe like brand equity a bit for the organization.
Absolutely.
We don't see that too much at the moment.
Definitely goes to building the whole brand aspect, right? I mean, the complete brand, as we kind of call it, is, how do you hit every avenue that touches so many different, so many touch points with your fan base?
Yeah, I'm glad I'm not involved in that decision-making process, I'll tell you, because it seems like an unsolvable equation. But I'm sure we'll get there, and we'll probably get there rather quickly once kind of COVID's out the way, whenever the hell that is, hopefully sooner rather than later. I feel it's time to discuss what I assume, from my perspective, it's your biggest esports involvement as a company with the V.Hive in Paris, as you say, like with Team Vitality. Am I right or wrong in saying that? That's like,
I would say it's definitely the most esports forward.
Right.
I would say I would kind of qualify our SoFi or
Yeah.
to be named performance venue as our largest. It's supposed to be open by the end of this year, but definitely V.Hive is our most forward esports thinking kind of digital brand push to date for sure.
And how does that process come about? Like, because I imagine you don't just go to an organization and say, hey, look, you could do with a facility. We'll help with
Right.
that.
Like anything in business development, it's who you know and the networking. So thankfully, with who we've talked to and trying to go to many of your events, Esports Insider events, and many other kind of conferencing events as well. We were able to meet with the Vitality organization, the heads of the organization, and through one conversation led to another. Like, hey, we're looking to do something like this, and presented to them, talk through our thinking, the way we approach these things for teams and their organizations, and not just from trying to build something fancy that looks good. We want to build something that performs for you and in the long run, and make sure that it's not a burden for your organization. It actually is returning something for you. And that won them over, and a couple about a year long process of design back and forth and getting the building squared away, and here we are now. It's open as of last November, I think. Yeah.
And it looks great from what I've seen, which is not in person yet, but I do hope to get there at some point.
Yeah, I'm still trying to get over there as well.
Yeah, it's not often I get to go over to Paris, unfortunately. But
Yeah.
So can you break down some of the functionality and like really what makes up the facility, the headquarters?
Right.
Because I think it's really interesting, and then that will give some idea as well into what HKS believes should be part of this, as obviously collaboratively with Vitality.
So one of the things that we kind of identified from the beginning is, Vitality was so ingrained with kind of the Paris culture as itself, and how close they and tied they were to the Parisians and their citizens, and it was really of the city and not so much this kind of outside coming in. So there was this focus to create it part of the community, and that's goes along with the property that they chose to do this on as well. So, part of Main Street, right? It's
right.
The specific street I will not try to name, but but it has that Main Street presence. There's sidewalk out front. There's glazing facing the sidewalk, so it's something that is touching the community and being a part of it. And that was kind of one of the focuses of trying to, how do we be a part of this community and not something that is just kind of sore thumb stuck in the middle of it. So with that, we know Parisians like fashion and they like food. So those two were kind of staples at either end of this facility. We have a retail spot for Vitality to express their brand, but as well as play host to other brand launches should they, bring on new partnerships down the road. And at the other end, we have kind of your typical coffee patisserie cafe to come in, have a coffee, sit, relax. Don't care if you like gaming or not. This is for you because we're part of the community. Cool. And then right in the middle of that is this kind of flex space that can play host to daily gaming, brand launches, nightly DJ events. Maybe small TED Talks if you really want to go that far. But it's a really, like we said at the beginning of this, it's about flexibility, because we're trying to figure out, especially for Vitality, they're trying to figure out, exactly how far and what they want to include in all of their aspects. So that's kind of like their front door to the community. And then above and below that are kind of some other ancillary spaces for them. As you go up in the building, there's two floors, I think, above the main floor, where it's their offices, it's their team development spaces, and there was kind of a lot of space there. So they're actually, I think we planned for a portion of it to be just kind of sublet too. So they could rent it out to other organizations, maybe a close partner to them. They could rent out some desk space for them. And then down in the basement, there's like a screening room, kind of a team huddle room, some private streaming booths, which are also rentable by the hour. So if you're local to the community, you want to kind of stream from the Hive, you can get some branding there as well. So you can be a part of the Vitality organization, like look, I'm here in the Hive, and it's, again, brings that kind of another level of interactivity with the brand as a fan, right? So there's, again, a lot of spaces in this kind of small, I want to say small, it's a good amount of square footage, but it's really flexible and really useful, and it can be used in so many different ways. And a lot of it was focused on how do we provide something for the community rather than just be, this kind of gleaming, shining thing that nobody can really touch.
I think based on that description, it sounds very different in approach to a lot of the like facilities and headquarters and stuff that we have in esports at the moment then. Because as you say, very community focused and encouraging them to get involved. And I mean, you never know, even if they're not a gaming fan, like if the Hive becomes their go-to, if they're just out and about in the area, like you never know, that could convert them. They could by proxy become a fan of Vitality, and that adds another level of it. But also, as we kind of discussed a little bit about like profitability as well, like being able to let some of these places and having like a shop front and an area for food and beverage and stuff, like it seems a lot more integrated into the community, and also less super serious esports gaming operation stuff,
Trying to bring more life to the brand than super, like you said, super crazy gaming. But one of the things we brought in from our sports experience was this layer of digital, right? You go to any kind of large venue and you see digital boards everywhere, and we didn't want to be so far in your face, but we know that digital platforms bring so much flexibility to this space. So there's this what we call a digital ribbon that runs through the entire space, and we worked with the Vitality team with their organization, and they basically kind of designed playbooks to be able to flip it over at should IES come in or one of their brands partners come in and want to activate it, can be in a night be flipped over to their entire brand rather than maybe just all Vitality. So it brings us another level of flexibility to the space to play host about anything that walks through the door.
Blimey, and what's the feedback you've heard from that? I guess like everybody loves it, both Vitality wise and like fans and general public.
Everything I've heard so far is been responded great. I've seen a few pictures even through ESI as far as events that have been held there, and it's filled out great. Seems to be working. To me, I think we need to probably still internally go back and do like kind of a post follow up, just to see how functionally on the back end they're working with it. But I think everything I've heard is they're loving it and it's working forward.
And is that quite typical to go back to like something you've built with / for a client and addressing and go, look, like that's maybe not serving how we imagined it to, let's address it?
I would say it's definitely something I've witnessed specifically with HKS. Okay. We like to go back and do a post analysis of how the spaces, we have so many theories on how things will work, and we've been doing this for many years, and we think we can design a space perfectly for how we want it, but until you get 40,000 people in a space and you actually see how people use it, you can't really tell me exactly how it's going to be used. So we like to go back and do a post-use analysis and basically record all the information so we know that what we've designed is working or not working, and then we can kind of adjust our designs moving forward and how people use space.
And who came up with the name? Who specifically? Because I want to give them a pat on the back. The name for the place, because it is very clever considering.
I think that was definitely Vitality that came up with the actual name.
You should have just taken the credit yourself then.
I know I can't. I always, coming from the creative side, I always like to give credit where credit's due, right? So many people don't typically get the credit they deserve. So I'm not going to take that one. I thought it was a pretty cool name. I don't know if it was an internal with Vitality themselves, or if it was one of their marketing PR firms that they use. I'm not sure, but it was definitely on their side of the table.
Right, and how have you got any other projects you can speak of about esports? Obviously, you mentioned the stadium, which will be the largest, and Vitality, which is a very esports. It's very esports minded, but not entirely esports focused, which is some way I'll probably look at it. Have you got anything else, or I guess you can't speak about a lot of things you have in the works. Which
totally can't totally speak to it, but I will say there is a lot of interest in the collegiate world, at least in the States.
Yes,
just from a recruiting standpoint and from kind of growing, even on the smaller school side that they want to grow kind of a sports. So we've definitely had many conversations in the collegiate world. And there's even more growth in the professional world too. When I say professional, I mean Call of Duty and Overwatch League, the ones that are kind of holding on to geolocations and stuff like that really want to build kind of meccas to their brand. We've had many conversations there, but I can't really, confirm or deny any official ones at this point.
That makes sense. So it seems like, as you say, like Activision Blizzard's franchise leagues for Overwatch and Call of Duty, they want to establish their own home base instead of having to rely on other venues, so they can kind of purpose build something that works.
And I mean, it's been the core of our conversation, right? Is that these organizations realize that they are a larger media company. They have many things that they can build on and grow and perform to. That is their brand, and that's not just an esports competition on a stage. Mm-hmm. So they're starting to realize that, and many of the people that are part of the organization or have bought these franchises are seasoned veterans in that world, so they understand that game, and so they're it's not immediate and it's not fast, but they are slowly building that foundation to be able to build upon that.
Yeah, you'd think so as well. Like having spent at least 25, having to spend at least 25 million over the next few years or whatever it may be just for the franchises alone. Never mind everything else that goes into it. Yeah, you probably want to establish it as best as possible and make sure you have things in place when you need them, and just a home base. I know Minnesota Rocker, they very quickly started building their own location even before their branding was revealed. They were showing off part of what they've done, and they've got dedicated areas for podcasting and stuff. So that's a kind of an interesting. I guess they're the first organization, at least public facing. They're the first team in the COD League to actually do that. But then as Philadelphia Fusion, sorry to interrupt, I will let you go in a second. Philadelphia Fusion with like Comcast Spectacor ownership is like announced its stadium, obviously, which is going to be a lot more expensive than what Rocker is seemingly has built. So there's a bit of a disparity there, but both have the same kind of purpose, I guess. Yeah,
definitely the Minnesota one is pretty cool to see that they're building at it is, I think you're right, the first Call of Duty specific team space that I've seen. And then the one in Philly will definitely be flexible between the couple of teams that'll be there. It's you gotta, specifically with the Philly one, you gotta look at the ownership and see their strategy around what they're building, right? And it's for the larger player. They're not maybe so specific to esports, but esports is definitely going to be a key part of it for sure. So looking at how they're playing the larger strategy there, especially where they're building it, is around 3 other stadiums. So they're trying to build a very large complex in that area to really play support to many types of events.
Mm-hmm. And another interesting thing, so with Vindex acquiring Belong, obviously that they're expanding massively, and a couple of interesting bits that was announced around the time of the acquisition being announced, but not too many people picked up on, I don't think, is the fact that they partnered with NV Gaming and they partnered with the Andbox, so the ownership groups behind the Dallas and New York franchises. So Sundance told me a little bit about it, saying like that can serve as areas for them to practice should they so wish to do so. Like, he didn't tell me too much, but also areas where they can perhaps go in game with fans, or like fan meetups in those specific areas, geolocated, like, so really building up the local and domestic fan bases for these teams, even though they may not be the dedicated headquarters. So I think that's kind of an interesting take on things as well. Like, they don't even own those arenas, but they're dedicated to those franchises in a sense. It might be called like the Dallas Empire Gaming Arena or something.
Right. And then the other one will be the fuel compound or whatever brand they want to go around it. But it's because our headquarters, the HKS headquarters there in Dallas, we have a really close relationship with the NV organization. Mm-hmm. Always on the phone with them, talking about what they're working on, what they're thinking about, and it was cool to finally see this come to light, and it plays along so well with everything we've talked to them, and they're kind of how they want to integrate with the local community, and that's one of the long plays here that I cannot confirm or deny, but always working with the NB organization and what they want to build. So it definitely, I will say, it definitely plays into their larger strategy, realizing that they are a media company and that they have many things to attach to, and this is just one of many that will be a part of their wheelhouse.
That makes sense. Like being an Englishman, I don't know the US very well at all, but I'm going to test my memory here, and I believe that they were building their own kind of thing in Victory Park, is it called? And I think
so. Yeah, they have
big billboards and stuff there with the Empire branding on.
Yeah, so much like the GameStop Performance Center there up in Frisco, they have a similar type facility. Okay. They're in Victory Park there next to the American Airlines Center.
So I got Victory Park correct?
Yeah, you did actually. Yeah, you got that. You pulled that one out. Yeah. So that's an area of town in Dallas that is kind of around American Airlines Center, which is the big arena there in town. And they have a large team training, front and back of house office or staff, all kind of in a one big office plate that they're all working together on. And it's a cool space, and they're working on to build it just to how they want it and what works for them. And they are a really smart organization to really see how their organization works first and how they all talk to one another and work with one another before they start building things. That space was really kind of wide open, so they could do almost anything they wanted with it when they walked in, and they've done very much that. They're using it just like that and trying to learn from how the organization works before they actually start putting walls and things in place.
Well, thinking instead of doing is quite an underrated concept in esports especially. So I applaud that, if nothing else. And getting towards the end of the episode, I've got to chuck one probably difficult question at you. I would love to know like one big bold prediction for yourself in terms of like esports facilities, headquarters, and stuff in like the next 10 years. Like, what's one big bold prediction you have there? Putting you on the spot. I love it.
For, you say specifically for team headquarters or just kind of facilities in general?
Yeah, facilities in general, but as long as it's relating to esports, I'd say.
Gotcha. My bold, and I think this is my bold assumption or push out there, and I'm going to say it's not even directed specifically at esports, but I'm thinking it's going to say sports organizations in general.
Okay.
Especially in response to what we've seen with COVID. There is going to be a huge push to make the in-person physical experience just as amazing as the out-of-house digital or virtual experience. So what you can experience in person at a venue, you should and will be able to experience away from the venue, and whether it be in a headset or glasses or a mobile device or on a TV, will be just as amazing. And that brings up there's a fine line to tread there, right? So yeah. How do you make the event so more attractive than that? So you got to one up the event so that even the amazing at-home experience is just as amazing. But thinking about because here's the issue that HKS has been trying to solve. There has been, for a given venue, only so many people can go to that venue in their lifetime. And there are so many tens, hundreds of times more fans that want to be a part of that venue.
Yeah.
So how do we get to those hundreds of times of fans to give them something that is just as amazing as attending the in-person experience? So that's why we have a kind of a pillar on the virtual experience for our firm, and how do we design something that is just as amazing as a physical experience. So that was a long-winded answer.
No, I like it.
Give
me time to process things.
Yeah, I think the virtual experience is going to be, it sounds, I think, so many people are jumping onto it right now because of the COVID, but HKS itself, we've been on it for at least more than 6 years at this point, trying to design something that is in parallel with our physical experience that is just as amazing in the virtual.
And if you're predicting that for the next 10 years, then I will be watching you even closer now over the next 10 years to see what the hell's going on. Even though publicly, like I don't know how open you are in terms of like which companies you're working with and stuff. But if it's something you can't speak about, then just drop me a DM and say, look at this really cool thing we've done. I told you I was right all those years ago. On that,
I will say
podcast.
over the next 6 months, we do actually have some stories to come out of the HKS website. So I will definitely send you some links.
How do you do that? 6 months? I can't wait 6 months, man.
They'll be planned out.
As long as there's stuff I can cover on Esports Insider relating to that,
right.
then I'm more than happy, and I'm excited for the wait.
I'll make sure to put an esports spin on it so you can
exactly, yeah. Just say it can work for esports if need be, and I'm all over it like a rash. So yeah, I'll be all over it. So I just want to say thank you very much for joining me. I really appreciate it. I really don't think there are many people I could get on to discuss these kind of things, especially from your level of knowledge and experience and stuff. So it's really appreciated. And now is the floor is yours to push whatever you want, as long as it's, well, I say whatever you want, anything relevant and not hateful, I suppose.
Yeah,
but you have a platform now to promote whatever you
wish. I appreciate it, yeah. I definitely, from the HKS side, we are definitely trying to push what it means to be an attendee at an event, whether that's physical, virtual, or a blend of the two. And I would say just, keep your ear out for, the HKS name, because we'll be pushing it hard in the next, 12 months.
I look forward to it, and I believe it entirely. I don't believe it when a lot of companies and firms say that, but I believe it in this instance. So, and I can tell by how much you've got in the works that you can't speak about that. Yeah. There's stuff coming really soon. So again, thank you very much for taking the time. I really do appreciate it. I feel like I've learned a lot. So hopefully, the people at home, because hopefully people are not office based still, the people at home can really take something from it, and it just gives another angle towards the whole facility, venue side of things, really, which I think is not really spoken about too much publicly on the esports side of stuff. So it's been great to pick your brains on that. So thank you again, and for everyone listening at home, another episode next week, the final one in this focus on venues and facilities. I'm not going to tell you who it is just yet, but I will see you next week for another one. Thanks for listening.